Much, and right now we will discuss here among the panelists. We move just a little bit to the left, and we will discuss among the panelists their very specific experiences, and I hope we get some dialogue. And Juan José Álvarez Brunel, el Secretary of Tourism of the state of Guanajuato in Mexico. The very first question I have for you, Juan José, we know, and most people here in the room have heard saying in the past that and destinations play a very important role. When we analyzed as UNWTO sustainability and national tourism policies, we found that all of them spoke about sustainability as important. Yeah? But the other thing we also found was when it came to implementation, there was a huge gap. Action plans as such were not substantiated, there was no financing, and above all, there was very little measurement. But we have seen that destinations are taking a very often a leading role in advancing, and we wanted to ask you, how does it come that you inspired, or did you inspire other destinations in Mexico? Did you play a multiplier role in Mexico when it came to climate action?
Good afternoon.
The mic.
Good afternoon. Is it there now? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Glazer and UNWTO to invite us to this panel and also to share what is it that role that the subnational government of Guanajuato in Mexico has played into this whole sustainability push-up. First of all, I have to say that awareness is the key part of moving forward into it, and I have to say that our governor's governance plan included sustainability all across the ministries, and that allowed us to work very closely with the Environment Ministry of the state of Guanajuato and the tourism, making sure that we shared different focuses and also goals very specific, especially on natural protected areas communities to start with. After that, what we did was to talk into our National Association of Ministers of Tourism, which we are 32 states in Mexico. Some of them are here at the room. And we, along with the authorities of the environmental agencies in Mexico as well, decided to combine efforts to combine actions into climate change and sustainability measures. That allowed us to have different pathways in order to, again, do the awareness that is most necessary to really get off the ground. And we set up 4 different commissions. One of them is focused on giving up public policies, which are very much most likely because of legislations in each state are different. We also did the training for our own personnel within the ministries. We did also the networking that we have to have not only among us but also on the international level, which is also a very, very deep foundation for what we have achieved. And lastly, just to have this, the communication of how we're developing what we have achieved. That has become a very successful pathways in Mexico that has led not only the state of Guanajuato, but other 4 states to join the Glasgow Declaration, and obviously to present our action plan as well, our climate action plan. And I am convinced that by joining forces, by making sure the awareness is there, the responsibility will come along, and eventually that will lead us to really go into implementing, compensating, mitigating, and regenerating, which is all that it's all about sustainability. So we are very, very happy in Mexico that we have achieved this momentum, and we're certainly looking forward to keep it going.
Thank you very much for explaining that, and we noticed that, and we were very thankful to you. for having joined us for the COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, where you also explained to a community outside of the tourism sector how this cooperation between the Ministry of Environment and Planning and your ministry, how that is working and how you aimed back then already to focus on participatory approaches. It was very, very interesting to witness now this multiplier effect and how that was enlightening over there a fire. And I can only encourage everybody here in the room to seek the conversation with you when it comes to cooperation. Guanajuato, the state of Guanajuato, is very, very often referred to when it comes to visit us on a technical level, and we will share with you the insights on how something worked. And that brings me right now to the Canary Islands. Jose Juan Lorenzo Rodriguez, the Managing Director of Tourism of the Canary Islands, inspired us also so much that we took you to the COP in Sharm el-Sheikh and wondered over there about how did you achieve this, focusing on the measurement and carbon emissions in an island state, and that is the question of boundaries. Jose Juan, what is your approach in the Canary Islands, such an important tourism destination in Europe and in the world, to measure emissions from tourism?
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you to UNWTO for inviting us to this important meeting and to be with all of you. For us, we are a signatory of the Glasgow Declaration, and before that we were working on measuring emissions. For us, we have a climate action plan even before than the Glasgow Declaration. I want to say that our climate action plan was approved on October 2022, and fulfilling the commitment to account for its progress annually. In November 23, we have the first report. It published the estimated total CO2 emission of the entire tourist sector on the archipelago. This estimate, including emission for all international and national air connectivity, for us is a critical point. About 80% of the emission in our activities came from the air connectivity, at estimate of 7.34 million of tons of CO2 equivalent. This is the total amount, including the air connectivity. But we observe almost 3% of reduction from the year base that was 2019. I want to put the focus on this high connectivity emission. Logical, these emissions are not on the sphere of influence of a destination, but the industrial, the airline companies. But we think that we can do much more than we think about that. Firstly, being aware of its dimension, the challenge that we face. Monitoring it, we monitoring all the emission for all airline carried to Canary Island, from the international flight and from the national flight, even inside Canary Island, and publishes its emission with total transparency. Everybody in Canary Island is aware of the dimension. Understanding the impact of the factors such as incorporation of new carriers, the more efficient ones, the use of sustainable aviation fuels, understanding and promoting the evolution of regulatory framework that applies to emission. This is really important. And we are working with the government, as government of Canary Island, different part of the government, studying how to facilitate the production of sustainable aviation fuel in the archipelago. Of course, or however, is the activities at the destination level where we can do most to achieve net zero objective. Here, the scope of our measurement reach local transportation, accommodation, restaurant, all leisure activities, tours, etc. With this scope, the estimate for 2022 was 1.41 million tons CO2, with a reduction, and this was really a nice estimation. It showed us that we can go forward better than we think. We saw a reduction of around 20% of in-destination activity, mainly because the improve in investment in all the accommodation, in efficiency, everything. And I want to finally, with the task that we have from this year. For us, it's so important. Now we put focus in the companies. The companies, the actor, the stakeholder that should reduce its emission. And for that, I don't want to talk about this now, but for that we have a tool, we have a digital tool that we provide support for your or share everything of that. But the other side is the 47 micro destinations that we have in our archipelago. And now we are working to facilitate that this micro destination have his own climate action plans. I will say that they only occupy 2% of our territory, but they have 90% of the overnight stays in Canary Islands. It's so important, and with this action, we want to reach all stakeholders, even the territory. So we are working in this way.
Jose Juan, thank you very much, and I still need to ask you one day who had the idea and pushed for this very first question in the Canary Island of focusing on the aviation sector, because most of the destinations have been shying away from that very complicated measurement. And it was very interesting to hear from you right now to see that even that is a difficult issue. You have made it an issue for tourism policy makers and tourism promotion, and I thank you very much. And that was already a leadership you have shown in the past. I hope that inspires as well. To tackle that very difficult question is absolutely necessary, given the enormous importance transportation has for the carbon emissions in the tourism sector. Anna, good Lord, what other question would I ask you than an indicator-based question, right? I still remember when the UN Statistical Commission was addressing you and saying, well, what is possible in Andalusia is not possible anywhere else, or something like that. It was along those lines. And so it means, in other words, you have a lot of experience in formulating first of all, in looking into the evidence. And now you're heavily focusing on formulating indicators. And could you share with us some of the indicators you are working on triggering policy action? What is important of these indicators to trigger policy action? As you heard before, nearly everybody speaks here about the importance of evidence for his climate action. So it's very interesting to hear what is possible in Andalusia.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dick. Well, I'm talking now about our experience in the project that my Director General explained, which is a system of indicator that we are developing under the support of the European Commission, and we are working hand in hand with the OECD, which is giving us this technical support for this system of indicators. However, this system of indicators is commonly work with a group of regions that we came together because of Next Tour, of the Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. There are some members of the team here. We are people from Andalusia, leading from Andalusia, but we are working together with Catalunya, Navarra, and Valencia. So this is a jointly work. It's not just Andalusia, that yes, we have a lot of experience, but I mean, this is feasible in all the regions. We have many good experts in other regions as well, in Spain and in Nextur, in the regions of Nextur. So we are developing a system of indicator which is mainly based on policy-oriented indicator. We are, of course, being very aware of the proper methodology that we need to use, but we are focusing more on the policy actions that we want to develop with these indicators. With respect to greenhouse emission, this is really a very complex issue. But here we have the support of the official statistics and also the methodologies that the colleagues of the UNWTO are developing. In this respect, this support of the UNWTO is critical for greenhouse emission and for climate change, and especially the work of measuring sustainable tourism framework. It gives us the first framework, as I said before, because we need to know which is the tourism-induced greenhouse emissions. And we need to compare with other sectors and with other countries. And this just can only be done if we have a common framework and methodology. So this is, I think, the first indicator that we need to look at. This is a framework indicator. With this information, we might know which are the emissions that comes from different from the tourism industry, not just from air emission, but for accommodation, other services. And this can be done with this framework, which interrelates the tourism satellite account and environmental account. It's a complicated system of a system of measurement, but in this, it's the framework that we all need to look at. And then if we are looking, this is the framework that we need for policy, basic. Without that, we cannot start making policies. And then other more applicable and oriented indicators are, for example, the air emissions, air travel greenhouse emissions. And this can be done also, there's one option, which is regionalize the national figure, but these are not policy-oriented indicators because the efforts of the regions are not shown if we regionalize the national figure. So in our system of indicator, our choice is, for example, looking at Eurocontrol emissions of the individual airports. So in this way, we can look if the airports in our destination are emitting more greenhouse emission or less, if our policy actions are giving the results that we want. And we are also looking at other type of methodologies, which is measuring the carbon footprint. There are many good methodologies around, but we are working in the methodology that is developed by the University of Surrey. A colleague in my organization, which is Inmaculada Gallego, many of you know, she's working hand in hand with the University of Surrey and Xavier Font team, and they are calculating the carbon emissions in Andalusia going to the different markets and the typology of transport they use. So we can choose whether a market is a good target with respect to greenhouse emission or not. And we are comparing it with the expenditure they have it in our destination. So these two information can be balanced. Then other applicable policy-oriented indicator that we are included in our system are if other type of transport, more sustainable transport, are being increased or not. We need to know if the tourism demand is using more environmental, less pollutant type of transport, for example. This means, of course, reducing the air travel, increasing, for example, the use of train, and also we want to look at the efforts we are doing in improving the infrastructures for sustainable travels. And these are linked with broader frameworks, as I said before. We are linked to the Measuring Sustainable Tourism framework. In fact, we want to produce a pilot with this experience. We are talking with the UNWTO because we want the indicators-oriented measurement. I think it is very useful for policy making. So the ambition is to become a broader framework. This is, we have it at the destination level, at the regional level in Spain, but we have further ambitions with this system of indicators at the European level, because we are also working in the development of a competence center at the European level, and this would be like the core methodology for measuring sustainability.
Anna, thank you very much for this tricky question and the introduction I gave you before. Indicators driving policy, and it's interesting that you mentioned the University of Surrey before. They just released a very interesting article in Tourism Management in the magazine, where they analyze actually how destinations are taking information into account when producing policy actions. One of the very, very important questions for us, and thank you for pointing out that you are interlinking with that. And that brings me to right now the private sector. Mariana Garita, the head of certification and social responsibility in tourism from the Costa Rica Tourism Board. I have a question for you where we right now focus on this very important stakeholder. What would be tourism without the private sector, right? And climate action in the tourism sector, what can be the role of the public sector? How do you incentivize in Costa Rica the private sector in such a way that you feel that you pushed, you were catalytic in climate action and helped them to accelerate?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to share Costa Rica's experience. I represent the Costa Rica Tourism Board, which is the governing body that ensures our sustainable, innovative, and inclusive model for development of tourism. And we update our national tourism plan every 5 years. The last one was released in 2022, and it sets the route and the path up to 2027. And it is aligned with the 14 of the 17 SDGs. And it also addresses two approaches, important ones. First one, the climate action or climate change, and second one, the sustainable consumption and production. Now, the design of this plan comprises a wide private sector participation representing by national tourism chambers and associations from different sectors in the country. So this is the first step to engage the private sector, to make them part of our plan. And based on that plan, there are a series of strategies and programs that drive sustainability and climate action into the private sector. One of them is the Certification for Sustainable Tourism. It's a free voluntary program that allows companies, different type of companies, from hotels, car rental companies, tour operators, travel agencies, theme parks, restaurants, spas. We have 9 categories, and allow them to transform their business models to base their businesses on the best sustainable tourism practices. And it also allows them, this tool, to evaluate the impact on social, economic, cultural, and environmental level. So regarding the criteria that they must comply in the environmental impact, one of them is the rational use of water and energy resources. They must implement alternative energy sources. They must provide solid waste management plans. They must measure greenhouse gas emissions, an action plan based on identified climate events and risks. And they must promote climate change adaptation measures and mitigation measures, use and promote low emissions regarding transportation alternatives, and offset the greenhouse gas emissions when it's possible. Many of them are mandatory, not all of them are mandatory. It depends on the size of the company and their possibilities. But companies in these programs, they also have access to trainings, specialized trainings, and also events. This certification is also recognized by the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, the GSTC. So it provides them an international recognition. And also, most of the companies, they take action because of conviction and because they are driven by a purpose in their business model. But also, there are other incentives. For example, a company that is certified, they can participate in tourism trade fairs like Fitur with us under the Costa Rica brand and the Costa Rican booth with almost free discount or partial one. And this also drives them to make sustainable or more responsible business with different strategic partners. And that way we try to bring sustainability to the whole value chain. Another initiative or incentive is the creation of a simple and secure calculator online to measure carbon footprint of anyone's travel, so that companies can also provide this to their customers or use them also. And the money from these compensations goes directly to official mechanism and programs to restore tropical ecosystems in Costa Rica. We are working also to provide a better rate for companies to compensate and offset their carbon footprint. And this initiative reinforces also the country's calling for companies and travelers that are interested in more sustainable and unique experiences. So those are some of the examples.
And thank you very much. And I give already the colleague from Brazil the microphone so that you can have the possibility to answer. And thank you very much that you answered this question right now. Always with these are pearls in a pearl chain. You think how these individual actions are leading to something else. What is actually provoking a process, so that this is a continuously evolving line of action where you address different facets, but you are in the end not wishing to see just a tick after mission accomplished. And that is something we have seen in many of the activities of sustainability fundamental, to provoke, to lighten this fire, and then hopefully that the fire which was supported by the public sector is continuing in the local communities, is continuing with the private sector. And that brings me right now to the next question of Jacqueline Gil, the Director of International Marketing, Business and Sustainability of Embratur, the Brazilian Tourism Board. Jacqueline, the internal changes since you signed up to the Glasgow Declaration in the ministry, what internal changes did you make right now to lighten up this fire?
That's a good. Hello. Hi. Yeah, working? Yeah, thank you. That's a very good provocation, lighten this fire. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dirk, and thank you, UN Tourism, for inviting us to be part of this panel and conversation. First of all, let me start by saying, and that is to give me credits for the second part. So let's start with the credits. Let me just come back in history a little bit and say Brazil has been a leader internationally in working on environmental and climate issues for 30 years plus. So let's go back to Rio 92, where the very first solid package of climate documents were signed. That is to say, we then were one of the first countries to sign the Paris Agreement and have volunteer goals to reduce emissions. And now we are very happy to host COP30 in 2025 in the Amazonian city of Belém. And I hope to see all of you and many more of you there, so we can continue and deepen the conversation within the Brazilian context. But that was just to give me the credit for this part, which now comes to tourism and climate action in Brazil. So this is the point. When the Glasgow Declaration was launched in Glasgow, there were no Brazilians there. No companies, no government, no representatives, no voice. Brazil was just not there. And that comes back to the recent years where we sort of were a little bit outside of the conversations. So in 2023, when we took the leadership in the management of the tourism board again, first provocation was bring it in, and by the president. And at that time, I was doing my PhD in climate action and tourism, and I said, leave it with me, let's do it. So we signed it quickly, and in September, when we became the signatory, first action was to internalize the issues. So we started with a strong ESG policy focusing on climate action and touching on issues like waste management, circular economy, banning single-use plastic, calculating all of the emissions from both internal transportation, commuting from staff to international travel of the team, etc., and purchasing compensation credits. And that that's being done. So, I mean, that's being started.
Mhm.
No, it doesn't finish, but that's being started. Now, in 2024, we are ready to consolidate that internal experience and outreach the players of the international tourism sector in Brazil to come on board and join us for a much wider conversation. As I look around, I might be wrong, but I don't see any Brazilians here. Am I right?
Obrigado.
See? So 2024 is the year we go out and about and start working on issues like changing the international hub for air transport, which brings more than 70% of our international travelers, the large majority of them from the Northern Hemisphere. And by that, I mean, if we change or if we slightly replace part of the super large flows that come to the south of Brazil, as São Paulo and Rio, as our main hubs, and put them, some of them, in the north, in the northeast. Just as an example of Spain. If we put the flights from Spain to the northeast of Brazil instead of going all the way south, in one flight, we can reduce 38 tons of carbon footprint in one flight, just by changing the hub. And that's about 2,300 football fields within the Amazon biome on it, which is a super strong carbon sink. So that's how much can we contribute if we get the sector to work with us and do some, transformational changes, and then come to the point and last, which is engaging international travelers in regenerative experiences. So that's where we are going to in 2024, and I hope we will have more updates to share at ITB if there is a discussion there, or at the next opportunity. Thank you all.
Jacqueline, thank you very much, and it links to what Jose Juan was saying before, that the tourism sector has many opportunities in its under its own control, and some of the ideas you just shared over there show that, and that is very important to echo here as well. The tourism sector has many, especially as we are sitting usually on the tourism promotion budgets. And that is a very strong element of where we can influence the way how tourism promotion takes place, products are developed, and how we are actually wanting to sell something. Yeah? And if we are putting at the forefront there where the cashier is not the candies, but the more interesting, climate-friendly products of the country, then this is already an important step. That brings me to Vicente. Vicente. Right now we heard just of another multiplier, and we thank you, Vicente Ferreira Acosta, Director General of Sustento, for your multiplier efforts you have played during the summit and in Mexico and beyond, and bringing signatories to the plastics initiative of UNWTO and the Glasgow Declaration. You are deeply convinced that this kind of initiatives help to align action, and the question for you, Vicente, is the adaptation that the projects we just mentioned before with the Secretary of Tourism of Guanajuato, when he cooperated with the Ministry of Environment and Planning, there was biodiversity, a very strong focus, and you right now can tell us something about what through these projects was actually taking place in through adaptation, increasing resilience of those destinations.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk, and thank you for having me and have this opportunity to learn and to share some of the actions from the point of view of a local organization working on the, I don't like the word, but working on the global south, where the issue is maybe not mitigation, but adaptation. Most of our countries are really vulnerable to climate change. And in the last maybe 10 years, we have been working with the private sector and the public sector, and of course with the support of NGOs and academics, to try to see how to adapt and to reduce the vulnerability of our destination. So I'm going to share one tool that I think that is really, really important for us, that has been important for us to make lobbying in a good sense with the tourism sector to implement adaptation actions, and then maybe talk about two projects, one in Guanajuato, one in Cancun, that we are leading today with the support of the private sector, and if we have time, maybe an experiment that we are doing with the Travel Foundation in Honduras with the climate action plan that is really interesting. First, in 2020, we started working with a project funded by the German corporation called Adaptur, from adaptation tourism, and we started analyzing the vulnerability of some of the destinations. But one thing that was really important in this process was the development
Yes.
of three economic impact assessments.
I understand.
What we do with three specific destinations, Cancun, Riviera Maya, that you may know, other at the Pacific, that is Bahía de Banderas and San Miguel de Allende in Guanajuato with the minister, was to evaluate the cost of inaction. And when we have cleared the cost of inaction, we can negotiate and say, if you don't act, for example, in Riviera Maya, the cost of inaction by 2030 is going to be $1.2 billion every year. So we have the data, and then we have the opportunity to work with the tourism industry to say we need to act now. In Guanajuato, for example, there is a real challenge with water, and we're working there with the government, with the subnational government, tourism, environment, NGOs, but also private sector, in the regeneration of a basin that is in the north of the city of Guanajuato. And this project is ensuring not all, but a great part of the water that Guanajuato needs in the future. The same in Quintana Roo. In Quintana Roo, we are working as well with this model of collaboration and with the support of leading organizations and companies like Iberostar. We're working really close with Iberostar and other 15 hotel companies in a huge project of sand dune restoration. If we don't have dune, we don't have sand. And Cancun and Riviera Maya are destinations that are sun and beach destinations, and we have had a lot of problems with the erosion of the sand. So this year we are starting the implementation of this project, but this project is really interesting because we are working together with the private sector, not as funder of the project, but as part of the project, bringing examples and also having the opportunity to learn from failures. We have had a lot of failures trying to recover the beaches that we have lost, and I think that this is really important, but the collaboration between actors to reduce the risk, but also to reduce the investment in the future, I think that is key in terms of adaptation. And the last thing I want to say, we are working now in Honduras with the Travel Foundation. We are working in their climate action plan. And it has been really interesting because this plan has the focus on adaptation. I don't know if we have other examples, but I think that at the end of this plan that is going to be ready maybe in February or March, we are going to have a really good example and a really good tool for destinations in Latin America and in other countries to develop climate plans, but with focus on adaptation.
Vicente, thank you very much for also introducing the Travel Foundation, and Alicia Fajardo, the Sustainable Tourism Specialist from the Travel Foundation, must have liked when you spoke already about this link and this focus on regeneration in this adaptation. This brings, Alicia, the question to you. Justice, climate justice, a big question mark over there when it comes from the Travel Foundation. How do you see this social angle of regeneration at destination level? What are your practical experiences?
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, probably the social angle of sustainability and regeneration has been the most challenging to work with, because Traditionally, many of the frameworks we have been developing and working with have been mainly focused on economic and environmental aspects and not that much at the social level, and is it fair to say that this is probably because social values are often less understood because it deals with human perspectives and experiences, and the challenge is to translate this into something tangible and something to define and measure. But yes, we are seeing now many destinations that are little by little introducing social aspects in tourism planning and as considering residents' perception about tourism, satisfaction or community engagement with the tourism activity. But really the key really is to start having a more holistic vision of what the tourism activity entails and how we can integrate these economic, environmental and social aspects of tourism, and understanding the linkages that they all have, and understanding really that the health of the planet and the health of the ecosystems are intrinsically linked with the human health and community well-being. And as an example, we can think about how mangroves restoration not only helps to restore nature, but also helps to improve the coastal health, local fisheries, and therefore the well-being of the communities and the local economy. And this is the vision that the regenerative pathway can bring to us, to the tourism sector, and brings to us an enormous potential to have a transformative role in the tourism sector. And yes, we are facing a climate crisis, but we are also facing an equity crisis, and these two are absolutely linked. And the positive side of these two crises is that this means that there's also an opportunity for having integrated solutions for both of them. And with our climate action plans, we are tackling climate change for the tourism sector, for hotels, for restaurants, and for the tourist satisfaction. But we also should have a broader vision of these impacts in a place, and how the community, how the food system, how the livelihoods are also impacted by this climate change, and how we could contribute not only to reduce our emissions, the emissions of the tourism sector, but also to regenerate the life of the communities and therefore the life of our destinations. So yeah, we have a really big opportunity, I believe, working together on climate action. So I think let's make the most of it.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everybody here on the panel. And just so that we understand that right, that was a business card. Everybody here of the panelists right now exposed and discussed. No, first we discussed with you the question you should address here during the panel, so that everybody in the room, not now, but later on the networking cocktail, can liaise back with you, and we hope that through the networking we can spark some additional fires. I thank you very much for having exposed these very first ideas here to the room. It was the discussion on climate action and with a focus on destinations. My colleague Virginia now, after the short break, will continue the discussion with the private-led climate action. I think the panelists, I want everybody here to recognize this was a very diverse and gender equal panel, which I enjoyed very much, and thank you to all of you for keeping it within the time. Thank you very much.